Hey everyone, it's Lee with Mantis Mechanics, and I'm here with part 2 of Shuai Jiao throws on our throwing dummy Chuck here. So today we're going to go over some different hand positions and some leg techniques that you can mix together to create throws. What are going to make these more intermediate throws is, one, it actually matters where you put your hands, and two, you're going to actually turn. You're going to use a crossing leg stance or a turning stance in order to throw. And this makes the throw a little bit more difficult, maybe not so much on Chuck because he just falls to the ground. If you just let him go, he's going to fall down. But when you do it on a live opponent, it's going to make it harder to throw them, right? Also, if you fail and you just turn, you're going to give up your back, which is never an ideal thing, right? You never want to give up your back. You would never start a fight standing up with your back turned to your opponent. You never start on the ground with your back toward an opponent unless you were extremely confident that you were that much better than that person. But we're not going to talk about that. I would, even if I was extremely confident, I wouldn't do that. I would start facing the person because that's the best place to start. So you can give up your back if you do these throws, if you do them improperly. Okay? The hand techniques that I'm going to show are going to assume that your opponent is not wearing a jacket or a gi or a Shuai Jiao jacket, anything like that, even though Chuck is. Okay, I live here in South Florida. Not a lot of jackets here. If you live somewhere, really cold, like South Dakota, shout out to my friends out in South Dakota, then yeah, you might want to practice grips on a jacket. That might be applicable, but all the ones I'm going to show you are going to be assume that he's not wearing a jacket, even though Chuck is. So here they are, the hand techniques mixed with the leg techniques for 3 intermediate throws on the throwing dummy. Enjoy. Okay, we're here with Chuck, and obviously he has arms. If you have a bag and it doesn't have arms, that's okay. You can just, where they hang, you can just get a rope and tie it to it, and voila, you have an arm to do this with, okay? Especially this technique. Again, I'm not going to use the jacket, even though he has one. I'm going to assume that we're in a no-gi situation. Otherwise, you can grab the sleeves, right, and the shoulders and underneath, and all these are very good positions. But I'm going to show you how to do it without the jacket because it is a little bit harder, okay? So the first one we're going to do is grabbing the arm. Now, when I have Chuck here, when I grab him, I want to grab and come inside and bring my shoulder into his shoulder like this. So I don't know if you can see that well, but I'm grabbing up high on his arm. I'm not grabbing down here by the wrist. I'm grabbing up high. The second arm can be down by the wrist or up by the elbow. It doesn't really matter on that one. It just has to hug. You want to hug it like, imagine you were putting on a seatbelt, okay, and hold it in. Now, I can do this from the inside and then switch, and when I switch, I'm going to pull with this hand like this, okay, and then I'm going to push with this hand at the same time so that I switch and turn my body, and now I'm on the outside. Same thing. I'm still shoulder to shoulder, and I'll turn so you can see that. And I'm still putting on that seatbelt, right? So the seatbelt goes across the shoulder to the hip. That's how I want my grip to be. And I can, if I'm doing this drill, I can switch in and out, right? Just like that, over and over, okay? Another one I can do is just going from in to in. So I go from that arm, and then I switch to the other, right? Now, going to be a little difficult because you're supporting the bag here, so it's going to feel a little clumsy, but if you can't do it on the bag, it's going to be very hard to do it on a person. Okay, it's just like punching. If I punch the bag and I don't have good technique, I'm not going to suddenly get good technique when I practice on a real person, when I try to punch a real person. So if I try to do a hand position or a throw on the bag and it's sloppy, then it's going to be sloppy when I try to do it on a real person. And that's one of the benefits of using a bag. Okay, so our second position is going to be under the arms. This is what's commonly called underhooks. So I'm going to bring both hands, if you can see, they're underneath his arms. So I can be up high like this when I hold, or I can be down around the hips. What I don't want is to be in this middle area here, like I'm giving him a hug. Okay? If you see that, it's not like I'm hugging him. I either want to be way up here or way down here on the shoulders. Okay? Now, a variation for this one is I can be under and over. So if you see that, an overhook, right, is when my arm is over his arm. Underhook is when my arm is under his arm. So in here, this is a little less ideal because now we're even, right? I have an underhook, he has an underhook. I have an overhook, he has an overhook. But you can switch back and forth trying to get doubles, right? Like this, coming in here. All these positions are good. So that's your second hand position. I always would try to get those double underhooks, especially if you're practicing on the bag. But also practice less advantageous positions because they will happen in real life. Now, the third position that I'm going to show you, hand position, is going to be going over the head. Now, a lot of people, when they do this, when they go for a throw and they grab the head, they'll go for like a headlock like this. I don't like this necessarily because then his head can slip out, right? Sometimes people are really good. They'll push their way out and they'll get their head out of the way, and then they can take your back. So what I like to do instead, I'll pick Chuck back up here, is I go over the head and grab right here in the lat area. So you can see like here's his arm, right below the arm where the armpit would be, right in there. That's where I want to go. I don't want to be, again, like this around their back like we're dancing. And I don't want to get like a headlock because you can see if I try to do this, his head comes out. And I don't want that. I want to keep his head in place. So it's going to be a little harder for them to slip if you grab in that way, right? So you're going over the head, right, and grabbing the lat. And again, you can switch back and forth here, here. Each time, switching back and forth from your grips, okay? Let's move on to the leg positions. Okay, so now we've seen some hand techniques that you can use on the throwing dummy. Now we're going to use the leg techniques. And this is what makes these throws a little bit more intermediate, a little harder than the others, because you're actually going to turn. You're going to be facing one direction, and you're going to turn 180 degrees and face the other direction. And when you do that, you want to make sure that you never give up your back, okay? And when I mean that, when I say that, I mean you should never give up your back and your opponent or your partner still has their balance, okay? They should be off balance when you turn your back. You do not want somebody to get your back. They can choke you out, they can hit you. You don't have a lot of attacks that you can do from the back, okay? So for this, we're going to learn a new footwork where I'm going to take one foot and I'm going to point it straight at the camera here, straight at you guys. And the other foot is going to come behind, and this foot is on the toes, right? I'm on the ball of the foot, and this foot is pointing this way. So it's going perpendicular like this. What this does is it starts to turn the hips, okay? So that my body naturally either wants to come back here or it wants to unwind. Okay, and that's going to be our first leg technique. So we're starting from here, stepping, and then turning, and my leg is going to slide back into a bow stance, keeping the foot on the ground. Okay, so if you want, you can go into a lower stance right here, keeping the back straight. Make sure a lot of people lean forward when they do this. So you want to throw. Now we're going to throw over this leg. It's important that I'm throwing over the back of the leg, not the side of the knee. If I'm throwing over the side of the knee and they land on the side of my knee, it can be a knee injury. If they land on the back of the knee, worst case scenario, I fall down on my knee. Not too big of a deal. Even if it is asphalt, it's not as bad as someone landing on the side of your knee. So that's the first one. The second one's going to be the exact same thing, only we're going to lift the leg up in the air. Okay, so My foot is pointed towards the camera. This foot steps behind. It's pointed over this way to my left. And now this foot, as I unwind, is going to come up. And when it comes up, I want my leg to be bent. Okay? I don't want it straight up like this. I want it bent. I'm going to be able to get a little bit more extension here, get my foot a little bit higher, and it's going to give me more leverage to lift up the bag versus being straight, right? So you can see when it's straight, I can only get up to here. When I go bend it, I can get a little bit higher. Okay, so that's what I want. The third one, we're going to do the exact same footwork, only this time, this throw, we're going to do, it's going to be the first time that the bag is going to be supported by us in the air. So we got to be careful not to bend our back, okay, not to round our back. So we're going to do this step, foot's pointed here, other one's pointed this way. I'm going to turn and put my butt up against the bag or my throwing partner, bend my knees a little bit, and I'm going to bring my hips back and scoot up. And notice my back is straight. I'm not rounded like this. I don't want to do this. Never want to bend your back, especially when you see me do this throw. I'm going to show you on the bag. You don't want to support that bag with a bent back. It's no good for your back. So here we go. I'm going to grab Chuck here, and I'll show you some different hand positions, different leg techniques. Now you can mix these up as much as you want. You could have almost limitless possibilities how many ways you can do this throw by different hand grips that you do. Just make sure that you don't never turn your back to the bag and that you're not lifting the bag with a bent back. So here we go.